Today, Tiesto is recognized as one of the biggest names in electronic dance music. He is frequently featured on the world's largest festival stages, in the hottest nightclubs, and on the radio waves. For many, he is seen as the godfather of a genre of music that took the world by storm over the course of his 3 decades-long career. From his early days, Tiesto has played an integral role in shaping the history of electronic dance music through his colossal stadium shows, original productions, iconic mix series, and influential record labels. This is the story of the world's first superstar DJ. This is the history of DJ Tiesto.
Everything's ready, you're on the dark side of the moon. Play the 5 tones.
Tiesto would begin DJing during the mid-80s around the age of 14. He was inspired by dance music radio shows like Ferry Mott's Soul Show and In the Mix from Ben Liebrand. Starting out as what he referred to as a mobile DJ, he primarily played small events like school parties, weddings, and small local clubs.
Yeah, definitely. I started as a mobile 15 years ago. I did weddings and student parties. And then I played in a big commercial club 5 nights a week. It was open 7 nights a week. And I played disco music, all kinds of stuff. And then from 1990, I was playing in a house club.
At the time, he was playing primarily pop music. However, during the late 80s, Tiesto would begin clubbing, going to places like Belgium and Spain, where he would fall in love with the newer genres of dance music. In one interview with the website NME.com, Tiesto would call out the track Age of Love by Jam & Spoon that's currently playing now. In another interview with DJ Mag, Tiesto would mention seeing Sven-Väth play for more than 6 hours, stating that, "When I was first in the scene, I heard a DJ from Germany played, named Sven-Väth, and I listened to him for more than 6 hours, and there was not one single record that I recognized. I was working in a record store. I was like, this guy played for 6 hours, and I don't know one track he played, and everything he's played is amazing. And then I said, this is what I want to do."
First time I heard the real beat was like in 1988. So I was just on holiday in Spain, and I just heard dance music. I was like, what is this? And I was very curious. And then I discovered the house sound of Detroit and Chicago and fell in love with that music right away.
Around the same time, he would begin DJing at Club F.A.C.T in his hometown of Breda in the south of the Netherlands. This time period would be critical to Tiesto's development as a DJ. As interestingly, as he mentioned in an interview with DJ Times magazine, he mentioned that the fact that he played in a smaller side room allowed him to experiment more with playing disco, dance, and house music. Because if people walked away, they just went to the other room. So the owner just wanted him to play what he wanted to play. So he was able to develop his own style.
So here we are at my first club where I started DJing. A place called the Spark, it's behind here. It's nice to be back here. I played here for approximately 150 people. Every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I played 6-hour sets from 10 till 4, so it's a great time.
I don't think I can understate how humble of a beginning this was for Tiesto. During my research, I came across a documentary from Dutch television, where one of the former employees of Club F.A.C.T mentioned how Tiesto was so dedicated that he'd be cleaning the bathrooms at the club. Hold on one second. DJ, run that back. Is that a Fallout 3 poster in the bathroom? Well, anyways. In 1994, Tiesto would start making music under a pair of aliases. One called The Joker, where he produced Gabber music, and the other one called DJ Limited, where he produced hardcore. However, these songs would have little impact on Tiesto's career. In 1995, Tiesto would hear Carl Cox's mix CD called F.A.C.T, and it would end up being one of his big influences of switching to trance music. stating in an interview with NEM.com, "When I first heard this album, I was already a DJ, but I hadn't broken through yet. I was DJing at a local bar in Holland, probably in 1995 or something. It had such a big impact on me. I remember thinking at the time, this is the music I want to play as a DJ. Every track on it is a banger. From that, I evolved into trance music." As Tiesto was transitioning to trance music, and with a little help from a friend, he would be signed to Basic Beat Records, and would be given the opportunity to mix on one of their compilation albums called Forbidden Paradise 3. This mix compilation would end up being incredibly successful throughout Scandinavia.
Nobody wanted to release my music back then, so I decided to release it myself. And one day this guy walked in, bought a couple of my CDs, and then the next day I received a call like, "Hey, I like your CD and I'm a distributor in Norway. I would like to order some from Norway and sell them in my country." "Yeah, sure. How much do you want?" And it's like, "Well, let's start with 5,000. 5,000 CDs? No, I never sold more than 500. So I had to scrap money from everywhere to produce the CDs, and then finally got it all together and shipped them to Norway, and that's how it kind of started.
In addition to the success of this mix compilation, Tiesto would begin to produce trance music. One early example of his trance productions would be a song called The Tube. In my opinion, the song is relatively simple, but it does have several features that will pop up in Tiesto's future music. Things like its ethereal chords, fast yet chill beat, and its transportation themes. As we'll see in the future, Tiesto has a knack for naming his songs after trains, planes, and automobiles. A few years later, in 1997, Tiesto would break away from Basic Beat Records and he would create his own record label called Black Hole Recordings with Arnie Bink. This record label would be one of the most influential early trance record labels, as it would help push some of the genre's early pioneers, like Ferry Corsten and Armin van Buuren, through their artist profile mix series, as well as release music from the genre's icons like Cosmic Gate, Marco V, and even Deadmau5. However, the first release of this new label would be Tiesto's Magic Mix series, that would continue for 7 more editions and would be a showcase of Tiesto's club mix style.
Tell me about the label that you started, Black Hole Recordings, and how that all came about.
I was working for another label together with my friend Arnie, and then but we couldn't do our own thing over there, and I really wanted to really release the tracks I like, and so that's why we decided to start our own label. And also with mix albums, because I want to release a mix album and not had to make the decision. I want to make my own choice to what to put on that CDs. So.
And people respect your decision, that's for sure, because your CDs really sell.
Over the next few years, Tiesto would continue to make music, with one key aspect of this period being his frequent collaborations, notably teaming up with Dutch trance producer Bino de Hooy, who would later start the iconic trance act called Rank 1. However, at the time, the pair would work under the name Kamaya Painters, with perhaps their most iconic release being their first single, Endless Wave. As well, it would be in 1998 that Tiesto would meet Dennis Ryer, who would work as an audio engineer for a large portion of his career. While these collaborations would help Tiesto improve the quality of his productions, they would not have a notable commercial success. However, in 1998, Tiesto's next collaboration with fellow Dutchman Ferry Corsten would help Tiesto take the next big step forward in his career. The duo would name themselves Guriella and would release a single under the same name. The song is fairly upbeat and energetic, with its arpeggiated opening bass line, before breaking down into some buzzing saw wave chords that are then complemented by some ethereal trance pads. The song then builds up until its drop, bringing back the arpeggiated bass line alongside these chords and pads. The single would be picked up and supported by Paul Oakenfold, causing it to become popular in the UK dance scene, and even peak at number 15 on the UK singles charts. This popularity would land Tiesto a monthly residency at one of the hottest clubs in England, called Gatecrashers.
You've just released a track which is also called Guriella under Code Blue. How did they get to hear about your track?
In Holland we always send a lot of white labels to the UK, to the big DJs. And Paul Oakenfold was playing it in, I think in Cream or something. And then he called Stuart from East West and he said, he was with him and it was the last track he played and the crowd went really crazy. And then Stuart called us and said he wanted to sign the track for his label. That's the story.
With Tiesto's popularity skyrocketing outside of his home country of the Netherlands, he would soon catch the eye of the country's biggest rave promoters, ID&T, now known for their Tomorrowland festival, who would invite him to play at the 1999 edition of Inner City at the Rai Amsterdam Convention Center to more than 25,000 guests. This show would bolster Tiesto's popularity in the country and would solidify him as one of the world's top DJs, as he was playing alongside some of his inspirations like Carl Cox and DJ John.
No, the funny thing was because ID&T was huge, was our biggest promoter in Holland, and they all had like their ties on with the record labels and stuff like that at Mox Music, which was a distributor in Holland. And Thijs was there for one day, Tiesto was there for one day to do his signing of his first own CD. Duncan walks in, Mr. Duncan, stuff around, sees him and he's like, "Who's that dude?" And it's like, "Oh, that's Tiesto." He's like, "What's he playing?" He's like, "Oh, Trance." All right. I think the guy at that time was still called Dream House or whatever they called it, right? And he was the first one to just pick it up and it's like, push it forward, this is where I'm going to go, this is what I want to do. And that was quite impressive. It seemed like how many CDs he signed. Why is he signing so many CDs? Oh, he'll be number one of the dance charts in Norway and number one in Israel. I was like, maybe we should have a chat with this guy. So they did. It was before my time when I booked him. In the City was the very first big indoor event, over 25,000 people that sold out, and it was like, he was a strange DJ in the middle because he was programmed between Carl Cox and DJ Jean, who was the super god at that time in Amsterdam, and then Thijs, but prime time. He killed it. So, and then it like, that was, the push that he got in Holland, and from then on it was just like, snowball effect. It became Holland, Holland became the UK. Paul Oakenfold heard about him, called him. I like your music. Paul Oakenfold just called me. Oh, okay. So, and it's like they took him on board in the UK, started booking him. So he blew up in the UK. And now the rest is history. But we'll go back to that as well.
A little later, in 1999, Tiesto would start his In Search of Sunrise mix series, which would be a mix series that is intended to show a more Ibiza club style of mix, in contrast to the high energy of his Magic Journey mix series. This series would be an incredibly successful one, and is still running today, though Tiesto is no longer the DJ mixing it.
Okay, you have a new album out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah, what do you want to know? What went into putting the tracks together for it? Like, is there just like a special thing about the tracks?
Yeah, well, it's called In Search of Sunrise.
Yeah.
And I selected tracks on my experience in Ibiza, so it's really nice all the tracks are selected on warmth and summer feeling.
Yeah.
So it's not only how I should play, it's more like the tracks I really like to listen to when I want to listen to a nice compilation CD when I'm chilling out with my friends. Or driving in a car or in a club, it could be all.
By the turn of the millennium, Tiesto was considered one of the hottest rising DJs in the world, having played on some of the biggest festival stages, in the trendiest of nightclubs, and having his music played on the radio. However, his next remix would further propel him into mainstream popularity. What's up, ravers? I'll get you right back to the video in a second, but I just wanted to say that if you're enjoying it, please consider giving it a like and leaving a comment down below, as it will help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to hear more stories about EDM history, consider subscribing to the channel, as I try to get videos like this out every single month. But anyways, back to the video. After an unofficial remix was beginning to see success in the clubs, Tiesto would be contacted by Delirium to do a remix of their song Silence, and include it in the official release of their song. His remix would end up bolstering the popularity of the song, and this release would end up breaking into the mainstream dance charts, peaking at number 6 on the US dance charts, number 1 on the UK dance charts, and even number 3 on the main UK singles charts.
And then I think the first remix was 1999 by Fade, which was like a progressive house mix. And that mix started getting added on a lot of compilations. Sasha Digweed, I think, were two of the first people to start playing it a lot. And then the label wanted new remixes, and it kind of grew from there. And I think the second mix might have been Tice's mix, the famous
Tiësto F.A.C.T, famous trance DJ by then.
Yes, I think that's, and then that really got things going, obviously.
It went big, of course. It went absolutely big.
While Sarah McLachlan's vocals are definitely the standout element on the song. I mean, I've listened to this part of the song like 5 times while writing this, and it still makes my hair stand up. They're that good. Tiesto's instincts as a DJ are on full display as he allows them to stand out front and center during the interlude of the song, with little more than some soft pads behind them, before crashing into some soaring synths that build into the climaxing drop of the song.
In this violin, I am singing. In this silence, in this violin, in this silence, I believe. In this violin, I am singing. In this silence, in this violin, in this silence, I believe. I have seen you in this violin. You are silent. You are breathing in this violin.
Alongside the success of Silence, Tiesto would continue to produce throughout the year of 2000, notably releasing a pair of collaborations with Armin van Buuren, who was also becoming a name in the trance and dance music community. However, this would be the end of Tiesto's frequent collaborations, as he would also end work on Guriella with Ferry Corsten to focus on his solo career. With this shift in focus, he would release his first solo album, titled In My Memory, which included several iconic tracks like Flight 643, Suburban Train, and Lethal Industry, all of which would chart on either the US or UK dance charts. For those that haven't heard these songs before, I will quickly point out what made them iconic, as well as some facts about them. Interestingly, these tracks would actually be the last 3 tracks on the album, so we can see that Tiesto felt the need to build up to these tracks, like he would during a DJ set. But first up, going in track list order, is Flight 643. The track is named after the non-stop flight from Amsterdam to New York that inspired the song, and as I previously mentioned, is another example of Tiesto naming his songs after transportation. Tiesto mentioned in an interview how during some turbulence he felt a certain lack of control, and this lack of control would be at the center of how he structured the track. The track's lead synth have a kind of airiness to them, almost as if someone was manipulating the sound of a jet engine. And as the song begins to climax, Tiesto turns up the delay and reverb before holding a single note, again invoking the feeling of the droning sounds of a jet engine. As a result, this intensifying wall of sound causes you to lose the groove and the noise, before the kick comes slamming back in and gets the whole crowd jumping again. Next up, we have Lethal Industry, which was originally produced as an ID in 1999 only for club shows, with only 3 copies of the record being pressed. The song's beat has a very industrial drive to it, probably where it gets its name from, before breaking down into a plucky lead that follows its extremely iconic and catchy note progression. This goes through a rather non-aggressive build before returning to the driving techno-style groove, alongside the iconic lead. Finally, we have Suburban Train, which was inspired by another track called Reform by Ronald Van Gelderen, under his alias Kid Vicious. According to one interview, Tiesto reached out to Ronald, and he actually helped complete the song, and was given composer credit on the track. The track is much more progressive and trancier than the previous two, with its interlude starting with a floating beep that transforms into a light, buzzy saw wave before dropping out, and building up with filtered synths that come in and out like waves, behind some dulled notes, and climaxing during the drop, with all of the elements of the song returning, complemented with some soaring strings. After the success of his first solo album, Tiesto would continue to perform across Europe, being invited back to play Inner City, as well as continuing his residencies at Gatecrashers in the UK, as well as Amnesia in Ibiza. However, he would also begin making appearances in the United States, notably playing in New York, Los Angeles, and Toronto. One thing that I found while going through these tour dates was that he played at an early edition of Nocturnal Wonderland, hosted by Insomniac Events, which is now known for their EDC festival. And what made this interesting is that Nocturnal Wonderland is typically held in the Los Angeles area. However, apparently these early editions of the festival were actually held in Lake Havasu, which is actually something that I learned while researching this. Beyond the clubs and festivals, Tiesto would also be invited by Pete Tong to perform an Essential Mix on BBC Radio 1. For those who are unfamiliar, the Essential Mix is a radio show that has been ongoing for over 30 years, where DJs are given a 2-hour uninterrupted block to showcase their music, and being invited to DJ one might be a high point in an artist's career. With this growing success, Tiesto would be approached by Moby to join his Area 2 touring festival, which would travel through several cities across North America and would help build his popularity in the United States, as well as expose him to the touring lifestyle. He would also get the opportunity to remix a couple of Moby's tracks, one of which would peak at number 13 on the US dance charts, called We Are All Made of Stars.
How did you get hooked up with the Area 2 tour?
Well, I did the first remix for Moby, the We Are All Made of Stars.
Right.
And he was really impressed about the remix. So then he asked me for the second single as well. Right. And then he thought, well, I would love him to join the tour, because then he heard a mix album of mine, and he heard the artist album, the Memory album.
Right.
So he was really impressed about my work. So yeah, it's a great honor that he asked me for that reason as well.
Also in 2002, Tiesto would play an iconic marathon show, playing for more than 6 hours at a festival called Dutch Dimension, which had an attendance of more than 6,000 guests. This show would reinforce the idea that a solo DJ could sell out a full show, and would set the groundwork of some of his future endeavors. However, before we get to those, these marathon sets would generate a rumor that caught my attention while I was doing my research. Apparently, according to some fans, in 2001, Tiesto would achieve a record for drinking 31 Red Bulls in a 24-hour period during one of these marathon DJ sets. And boy did this send me down a rabbit hole. Okay, so I don't remember where I first read this rumor, but I do remember the first thing that I thought after reading it, which was, would drinking 31 Red Bulls kill you? And apparently not. According to my research, a lethal dose of caffeine would be about 50 to 100 cups of coffee, and with Red Bull being about the same caffeine content as coffee, seems like it is technically humanly possible. However, I'm not going to recommend that anyone do it. Well, after confirming that it's technically humanly possible for this to happen, I began searching Google for some more details. And I came across at least one article that was stating that the record was a Guinness World Record. And, if I've learned anything from H Bomber Guy, if it's a Guinness World Record, they probably have some sort of, record of it on their website. So I checked out their website, and unfortunately, they don't have any records regarding the consumption of Red Bull. I did find this record about eating the most French toast in 1 minute, and this person said they ate 16, which is good for them. However, getting back on track, as much as this random research dive into Red Bull World Records is on track, I noticed that all the articles I was reading had the exact phrase 31 cans of Red Bull in quotes. So this means they must have gotten these exact words from somewhere. So I searched for this exact phrase on Google, and I happened to find this Wikipedia edit log, and this is where my heart dropped. The note stated that Tiesto stated that he never broke the record. So I followed the link from the edit log, and it took me to this forum. And sure enough, there was a series of questions there, including one where Tiesto was apparently stating that he never broke the record by drinking 31 Red Bulls. However, because this was a forum, I was a little unsure of the legitimacy of it. So I took various parts of the forum posts and searched them in quotes on Google, and the only thing that I could find regarding the questions at the top were other forum posts. So it just seemed a little illegitimate. So I took a portion of the text from the paragraph below, and it linked me to DJ Mag's Top 100 list from 2009. And it exactly matched their section on Tiësto. However, this page did not include the questions that seemed to prove that Tiësto didn't break the record. So, I huffed a little bit of copium and just assumed that those questions were not legit. And he specifically said he didn't break the record by drinking 31 Red Bulls. I mean, he could have drank 30 or 32 and still be telling the truth. But Anyways, I continued my research. I went back to Wikipedia and looked at the version of Tiesto's page prior to the edit removing the claim about the Red Bull record, and noticed that there was a citation on the original claim. And this took me to a 2006 IGN interview, and when asked about the record, Tiesto said he would never attempt to break it again. Now this is interesting, because while he wasn't confirming that he broke the record outright, he wasn't denying it either. So at this point, the copium was really kicking in, as I felt like I had hope that the rumor could be true. So I took a kind of long shot and reached out to the author of the interview from 2006 to see if he had any recollection or additional information as to where the rumor came from. However, given that the interview was almost 18 years ago, he said he didn't really remember any additional details. However, he did say that Tiesto was one of the nicest, most gracious people he had interviewed, which just goes to show how humble and dedicated of a dude he is. However, at this point I had pretty much hit a dead end, until, while doing some other additional research, I found this.
So speaking of long sets, there's been a rumor going around forever that you hold the Guinness World Record for drinking the most amount of Red Bulls. I think it's 31 in a 24-hour period. One, is that story even remotely true? And if not, where would that have come from?
I think Red Bull made up that story. It's a great PR story for them.
It's a great PR story.
I think if I would drink 31 cans of Red Bull, I cannot recommend that. But
no.
I used to drink a lot of Red Bull, and it gives you definitely gives you energy, right?
Yeah, give you wings. Is that a little?
But no, it's I don't know where that story came from, but yeah.
It's held on. I think it's still on your Wikipedia page somewhere. I think hidden in there. Yeah. So
legendary. Well, thank you, Red Bull.
Thanks, Red Bull, for helping you out.
Well, it seems pretty confirmed that Tiesto in fact did not break the world record for drinking 31 cans of Red Bull in 2001, and I came up empty-handed regarding the origins of the rumor. If I had to take a guess, at one of his shows on his artist writer were several cases of Red Bull, and this was for his entire team. And after the show, there was only one can left over. And so the rumor started as Tiesto's whole team drank 31 Red Bulls, and then eventually morphed into Tiesto himself drinking that many. I mean, I tried really hard here to pull a reverse Tommy Tellerico and get the wholesome big chungus that is Tiesto a world record, but it just wasn't meant to be. Okay, hold on one second. The copium's kicking back in. Technically, in the interview, he didn't deny that he broke the record, just that he didn't know where the rumor came from. You know, because it wasn't a rumor, and he actually did it, which means we still have hope. However, getting back on track, Tiesto would round out 2002 by releasing his third edition of his In Search of Sunrise mix series, playing at Coachella and performing as part of the Times Square's New Year's Eve celebrations. He would also be crowned the world's #1 DJ in DJ Mag's annual Top 100 DJ poll. This would also be the first year that online voting would be included in the decision-making process, and this change likely helped him leapfrog the previous year's top 5 DJs, as Tiesto had a strong fan base across several early trance forums.
Most successful year till now. I won so many awards. I won the Dutch TMF award. I won the UK Dance Star award. And I won the Ibiza award for best DJ on the island this summer. And but the biggest award I won was to be voted by DJ Magazine, being the best DJ in the world of 2002. And that's for me my biggest dream, which has come true till now. So.
After the success that was 2002, Tiesto would have the confidence to take what would be one of his biggest steps forward in his career. He planned to sell out a stadium of more than 25,000 guests with a solo headlining show. These types of shows had been previously reserved for only major dance festivals, and bringing out this size of a crowd for a single DJ was something that had never been done before.
Once we hit the first mark, with the first Tiesto concert in 2004, which was an unexpected success for everyone, we were hitting the mark of 10,000 people. That's what we thought. It became 25,000 and it sold out. It was the first time a DJ ever did a all-nighter in a stadium with a bit of a show element. That's why we still were close with IDT. And because it was their concept in the beginning, obviously. And but we all didn't believe that it's going to be so big. When we did that 25,000 marker, plus the international press that we got from it as such a positive thing, even the UK was like writing really, really good reviews about it. And I'm like, I think we hit a new piece in anybody's career, in
Tiesto would also up the production value for this show by including live singers, musicians playing live instruments, as well as a plethora of theme stage performers. The concert was themed as a trip around the world and would include live performances from groups from each location. The concert would be a success, selling out weeks ahead of time, and a companion DVD would be released and is available on YouTube today if you want to check it out. With the success of Tiesto in concert, Tiesto had accomplished something that no prior DJ had been able to achieve. And over the next few years, he would continue to push his career to new heights. Beyond the success of the Tiesto in Concert show in 2003, Tiesto would continue to perform across the globe, notably performing at festivals like Global Gathering in the UK, Dance Valley in the Netherlands, and Ultra Music Festival in Miami. Beyond the festival stages, Tiesto would continue his residencies at Amnesia in Ibiza and Gatecrashers in the UK. One thing that would change for Tiesto would be the release of his DJ Mix series. In 2003, he would combine his Magic and In Search of Sunrise mix series into one 2-CD release called Nyana. This release would be relatively successful, going gold in the Netherlands. However, this was actually the last time he would ever do this, and going forward, he would cancel his Magic mix series and only continue doing the In Search of Sunrise mix series. On the production end, Tiesto would be relatively quiet, as he was working on his second solo album. However, one interesting release during this time would be a remix of Madonna's Die Another Day, which was the theme for the James Bond movie of the same name. And while this isn't one of Tiesto's most iconic songs, it is foreshadowing for one of my favorite songs coming down the line. In April 2004, Tiesto would release his second solo album, called Just Be. This album would be even more successful than the first, and would peak at number 3 on the US Dance and Electronic Albums chart. It would also include several more iconic songs, but the 3 I'd like to focus on are Love Comes Again, Traffic, and Adagio for strings. First up, we have Love Comes Again, which is the second song on the album, and is a collaboration between Tiësto and American trance producer BT, whose career runs almost as far back as Tiësto's does. The name power behind this track would help it be extremely successful, peaking at number 1 on the UK dance charts and number 4 on the US dance sales charts. BT's lyrics are catchy and have a Eurodance effect to them, but the most iconic part of the song is after the chorus, when the track hits you with a massive and sharp saw wave synth that builds up into the song's main drop.
Love can come again.
Next, we have Traffic, which once again goes back to Tiësto's transportation theming for the names. But this track was originally supposed to be an ID for live performances only, but after it went off with the crowds, Tiësto's team decided to release it.
Sometimes tracks surprise us as well, who became big hits, and we're like, oh, really? Traffic, one of them, it's like, we did it for fun. It was a B-side. I've engineered that whole thing from A to Z. It's like I called Sean Dees and can I buy the sample? Can I sample it? Can I take a sample from you and I'll pay you for it? And I cleanly did the publishing together with our publisher. It's like, can I have the publishing? Yeah. You keep the original rights. For us, it's just a B-side track. We want to make something for the show. That was the second edition concert show. And Tiësto played that track, and the people went nuts. And it was the days after we were on the blogs, well, not even blogs. Was it forums at that time? Yeah, they call it blogs, whatever. I don't know what we call it. It was like people weren't going on about that track. What is that? What is that? Because it was a completely non-trance track. It was a pure techno thing, very melodic and very much, pushed up. But it was a techno track, Psycho Fuck, nobody ever heard of it.
The song has an incredibly driving beat, with only a couple of bass notes to break up the 4-on-the-4 groove pattern. We are then slowly introduced to the buzzing saw wave that is the main lead of the song, as it plays a fairly simple but catchy note progression. The song climaxes as it drops out the beat, adding what I think is some kind of string underneath the main synth, and it gives a sort of royal vibe, as if some sort of robot emperor is descending down from his throne. It just seems so regal with this little tinge of diabolicalness to it. However, the song then builds into the drop as it returns the driving beat pattern alongside the main synth alongside its accompanying royal strings. Also, I like this part of the first drop where it seems like they're reversing the bass, and it just seems like such a unique way to keep building the energy of the song. And it's really like nothing else I've ever heard before. Finally, we have Adagio for strings, which is based on the classical composition of the same name by Samuel Barber, who would be given songwriting credit on the song. This classic composition is already incredibly iconic, as it has been used during the funeral of several heads of states, as well as been used in Hollywood movies. Tiesto's version would skyrocket in popularity, peaking at number 3 and number 4 on the UK and US dance charts respectively. It would also go platinum in the UK, and the song would be voted as the second greatest dance track of all time by Mixmag in 2013, only being beaten out by Daft Punk's One More Time. Composition-wise, the song has a driving beat with a buzzing bass line, before breaking down into its iconic classical composition. Now, I already played the epic lead synth during the intro for this video, so for this part I want you to pay attention to the build of the song, and notice how as the bass notes come in, they begin to interfere with the main synth and create additional distortion. And then as the build progresses, and these bass notes turn from shorter tones to longer sustained notes, notice how the distortion continues to build and helps drive the rising energy of the song. The song was actually produced prior to Tiesto's concert show in 2003, and the performance of the song would catch the attention of the 2004 Olympic Committee. They would invite Tiesto to DJ a 4-hour set during the Parade of Athletes as part of the opening ceremony. The committee would ask Tiesto to only play instrumental music, in order to avoid potentially offensive lyrics in the various language of the athletes. As a result, Tiesto would produce several original tracks just for the show, all of which attempted to blend, quote, ancient and modern sounds together, similarly to how Adagio for Strings had. Tiesto would also release a mix album called Parade of Athletes. It's on YouTube for free, and it's pretty chill if you want to give it a listen. On a bit of a random side note, I found several articles stating that more than 4 billion people tuned into the opening ceremony for the 2004 Olympics. And I'm kind of skeptical of that because at the time, there's only about 6 billion people on Earth, and I doubt 2/3 of everyone on Earth was watching this. So I did some further digging, and it seems like this 4 billion viewer number came from a presentation that was aimed at advertisers, and the 4 billion viewer number seems to be for the entire 21-day Olympic events, which seems a little bit more reasonable given it's the entire Olympics and not just the opening ceremonies. But again, to try to get back on track, after the Olympic Games, Tiesto would host the second edition of his Tiesto in Concert shows, and this time it would be over 3 nights, 2 in the same venue as the original, and a third in Belgium, with all 3 shows selling out. Tiesto would once again up the production value for this show, with perhaps the most notable improvement being the ring around the DJ booth, being able to display more complex visuals. As well, in my opinion, the stage having a much more sleek design, as the portions for the live performers are hidden much better up until they are in use, in comparison to the original concert. The concert would also produce an iconic performance from the violinist Mason during Tiesto's track Lethal Industry, and he would continue to tour with Tiesto over the next few years. Tiesto would round out 2004 by touring North America and securing his 3rd consecutive #1 DJ award from DJ Mag. It's hard to overstate how impactful the year 2004 was on Tiesto and the history of dance music. In particular, Tiesto's performance at the Olympics would not only demonstrate to the world that dance music was ready to enter the mainstream, but it, alongside his DJ Mag win, would inspire future EDM icons like Martin Garrix and Hardwell.
I got in touch with electronic music through Tiësto because he was performing at the Olympics in 2004. My mom, she grabbed me, she was watching the ceremony. I don't know, the music did something with me.
When he played to thousands of people at the Olympic Games, that was just phenomenal. And he did all of that on vinyl. I mean, he probably wouldn't do that on vinyl today. I know I wouldn't.
That was for me like such an eye-opener. I wanted to become a DJ, and when Tiësto won that award, I was like, Mom and Dad, one day I want to become the #1 DJ in the world.
Tiesto would continue his success into 2005, finishing up his tour in Latin America, with stops in more than 8 countries according to my count. This tour would inspire the 4th edition of his In Search of Sunrise mix series. To promote this new mix CD, Tiesto would launch his In Search of Sunrise 4 club tour that played at several smaller venues across Europe and North America. Speaking of Europe, outside of the typical club and festival gigs, Tiesto had a pair of notable shows that I'd like to point out. First, he would play at a fundraising event that supported the relief efforts after the 2004 Indian tsunami, which would be the start of his philanthropic career. The second notable show would be for the opening of Space Mountain at Disneyland Paris, which would also be broadcast as his second Essential mix on BBC Radio 1. This mix is a great example of his festival-style performances, as it has all of his iconic hits, and was described by Pete Tong as this.
Well, this week, it's Paris for another totally unique global event. The man behind this one-off one-man party has already broken boundaries by playing the Olympic Games last year in Athens. Ridiculous. He's developed the highly successful in-concert events, packing out arenas across Europe. No one, I say no one, does the big gig bigger than this man. Recorded exclusively for the Essential Mix, this is extraordinary. This is Tiësto, live from Disneyland in Paris.
Tiësto would actually be given a second Essential Mix in 2005, as part of Radio 1's 10-year anniversary in Ibiza. This mix, however, would be a much more progressive, deep style of music, similar to his In Search of Sunrise mix series. Beyond Europe, Tiesto would have notable tour dates in the United States, including an appearance at an early edition of Ultra Music Festival in Miami, as well as the first American edition of his Tiesto in Concert show in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena to more than 16,000 guests. This show, along with some time spent in LA during late 2005 with American trance producer BT, would inspire Tiesto's 5th edition of his In Search of Sunrise mix series, which would be released in the first half of 2006. However, beyond the release of this mix CD, 2006 would be relatively quiet for Tiesto, given the standards set by the previous years. This was partially due to a medical incident that occurred in late 2006 that caused the cancellation of several tour dates. However, one notable event from 2006 would be Tiesto's soft return to productions, with the release of a remix of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, composed by Hans Zimmer and Klaus Baldelt. Given Tiesto's experience mixing classical compositions with electronic sounds from Adagio for strings, this song would transition smoothly between the original score before dropping into a high-energy, fast-paced trance groove. It is one of my favorite Tiesto tracks. It's just so fun. In regards to performances, in 2006, Tiesto would primarily focus on Europe and North America, with the most noteworthy appearances at Sensation White to a crowd of more than 45,000 fans. By the end of 2006, Tiesto had become a machine of success, and while the last few years seemed to have been slowing down, that was only because he was gearing up for the next big steps of his career. While Tiesto had been relatively quiet on the production side over the last 2 years, this was because he was working on his 3rd solo album called Elements of Life. The first song I'd like to talk about is the title track of the album, Elements of Life. For starters, I love this opening portion of the track, where you have this sort of water drop sound that is pitch bent down before dropping into an absolutely filthy bass line in the intro beat. Just so cool. As the song continues and breaks down into its interlude, we are treated to a royal-sounding organ synth before being hit with the song's powerful main lead, which is quite reminiscent of Adagio for strings, as its build-up would follow a similar pattern. In my opinion, the track might be the magnum opus of Tiesto's early career, in that while it's not his most iconic work, it does feel like it's the culmination of it, as it pulls inspiration from several of his other work. For instance, it has the classical influences and structure of Adagio for strings, the big royal-sounding synths of songs like Traffic, and it has the driving industrial-sounding beat of Lethal Industry. While the song may have not been the most successful one on the music charts, it's definitely one of my favorites. Next, we have the song Dance for Life. The song shares the name of a Dutch anti-HIV and AIDS initiative that Tiesto became an ambassador for back in 2006. The song also features the vocals of Maxi Jazz of Faithless, who you probably know from this. May be one of Tiesto's darker songs, as it doesn't include any of the big synths or soaring strings, instead opting for a dark beat and a lead synth that kind of sounds like a chopped up siren. However, the climax of the song is still pretty cool. A couple of interesting things I found while doing research are, first, there was an album review that I came across from The Wonky Angle, where he mentioned that he didn't know that the song was part of an anti-AIDS campaign, and was caught off guard by the tagline at the end of the song where it says, "AIDS is lethal." And this was funny to me, knowing that there was probably a good number of people out there in the same situation that were caught by surprise by this part of the song. The second funny thing I found was this live performance of the song in 2006 at the Amsterdam Music Awards, which was a collaboration between Tiësto and the Blue Man Group, who are just so silly, but it does have this really cool drum and bass portion right here. Finally, we have the song In the Dark. This song would be the biggest departure from Tiesto's past productions on the album, as it incorporates several rock elements, with its acoustic guitar bassline and rock-style kick-snare pattern in the intro. The song also has a clear pop song structure, with its almost continuous lyrics and lack of aggressive builds. In some ways, it feels ahead of its time, and it reminds me of Calvin Harris's song Feel So Close. I do really like the climax and the drop of the song, with its fun, bright synth over the guitar bass line. Also, interestingly, Tiesto stated that he found the singer Christian Burns through MySpace. Burns would continue to have an active career in dance music, working with the likes of Armin van Buuren and BT. The song would be successful, peaking at number 12 on the US dance charts, as well as number 2 on the Dutch Top 40. Beyond the success of In the Dark, the whole album itself would be a success, peaking at number 1 on the US dance music chart and number 17 on the main UK album chart. However, despite this success, the album would have limited financial success due to the fact the album was leaked before release and was illegally downloaded more than 75,000 times.
Technology really catched up to me because the album was supposed to be released on the 7th of April, but you know, some people already got a hand of a copy and they put it on the internet, and now it's been illegally downloaded more than 75,000 times only this week. So it definitely catches up, so it's a good lesson for me to see. I didn't know the internet was already that big. Like the song In the Dark, I put it on a couple of days ago. It's already listened more than 50,000 times now. And MySpace is blowing up.
Despite the success of the album, it was not without its controversy. Especially in the dance music scene, many people saw songs like In the Dark as being too poppy and felt like Tiesto had sold out to sell more albums. However, in my opinion, I just don't think this is true. The album has several more classic Tiesto-style tracks. For instance, 10 Seconds Before Sunrise is a beautiful melodic trance track that would be right at home on Tiesto's In Search of Sunrise mix series. Then you have songs like Everything, which are a great example of a more progressive vocal style of trance music. And finally, you have Do You Feel Me, which has almost a deadmau5 style of big, plucky notes. But regardless, I feel like this album gets some undue hate, and it's actually really good. After the success of the album, Tiesto would launch his Elements of Life World Tour, which was a tour that spanned across the full year and included 106 dates. Noteworthy among these shows would be a January 7th show where Tiesto played to a crowd of more than 200,000 people on Ipanema Beach in Rio de Janeiro. Next, in April, Tiesto would be invited to play on the main stage of Coachella, and while he wasn't the headliner, he did play after the headliner, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, to close out the stage. And finally, in November, he would play in Denmark, with this performance being recorded and released as the Elements of Life World Tour DVD. Also in 2007, Tiesto would release the 6th edition of his In Search of Sunrise series. This edition would be subtitled Ibiza, and was inspired by his time on the island. Now, this following information is based solely on Wikipedia. It does sound like at some point this information was posted on Tiesto's website, but it seems like it wasn't archived and isn't available anymore. So, according to Wikipedia, Tiesto stated that the album was produced the old-fashioned way, using CD mixers and did not use any programs or computer gadgets. Tiesto also stated, "Most of the tracks are so exclusive. If I'd still be mixing with records, I wouldn't have been able to get these productions on vinyl." One thing I am able to confirm about the release was it in special slipcase with notes about each track from Tiesto. A couple of these are notable. First, when describing his remix of Imogen Heap's song Hide and Seek, he stated the song won't be released on any other CD ever. We made it especially for this volume of In Search of Sunrise. It's the perfect track to end the first disc of the mix. And I agree with this, because this is one of my favorite remixes of his. The second noteworthy one would be for the 5th track on the second album, where he stated that the producer was a fresh talent from Canada, and we'll hear a lot of this guy in the following years. I wonder who that is. Oh, look, it's deadmau5. So, once again, he's right. We definitely did hear a lot from that guy. However, continuing on the subject of Ibiza, as part of his Elements of Life World Tour, Tiesto would do 2 back-to-back tour days at Privilege in Ibiza, which at the time was the largest club on the island, hosting more than 10,000 people. And these shows would lead into 2008, where Tiesto would be invited to be a resident at the club, playing there until 2011.
During the summer season, you have your own residency in Privilege in Ibiza. Is it your favorite place during the summer season?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a beautiful club, and we totally rebuilt the club. Everything in there is new, and yeah, it looks amazing now. And we had the opening last week, and it was sold out. So yeah, it's amazing. The first week of June. Last year I started in July, and this year I started 1 month earlier, and it was already full. So I think Ibiza is going to be amazing this summer. Oh, you were there? Nice. Oh, that's great, right?
More than 10,000 people, so it was really amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
One interesting fact about this residency was that Tiesto would invite Avicii to open up his shows for most of the summer. And Tiesto stated in an interview that these shows helped Avicii develop his DJing skills.
Well, before that, I mean, he was still only a bedroom DJ, a producer. So I asked him to come to me into Ibiza to play before me every Monday night. So that's how he could learn how to DJ.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So
I took him under my wing and he stayed at my house in Ibiza the whole summer. And that's how we really became close friends.
Would you say that was around 2009, 2010?
Yeah, 2009 probably, yeah. Or 2010, I forgot. I think 2009, yeah. Summer of 2009.
One final noteworthy event from 2007 would be Tiesto launching his Club Life radio podcast, which is still ongoing today and is approaching its 900th episode. Heading into 2008, Tiesto would finish up his Elements of Life World Tour by playing several shows across Asia. These shows and the time he spent there would provide inspiration for the 7th edition of Tiesto's In Search of Sunrise series, which was subtitled Asia.
Today we're gonna mix the new In Search of Sunrise number 7 from Asia, and we're here in Thailand, and I mean this is the perfect spot to mix a new mix compilation, especially the In Search of Sunrise series. Look at my view, and we have a great setup here. It's in the kitchen of the owner of this hotel.
This would be the final In Search of Sunrise compilation mixed by Tiesto. However, the mix series has continued onward. Some versions of this mix compilation would include a third CD that included several remixes that Tiesto had recently done for artists like Tegan and Sara, Seal, and even Britney Spears. This would then lead into Tiesto's In Search of Sunrise Summer Tour 2008, which sounds like just a short tour to promote the new album, but in reality, it was actually a world tour spanning across 6 months and 121 shows. A couple shows that had caught my attention from this tour: a performance at Bonnaroo Music Festival in Tennessee, a performance at the O2 Arena in London, which for my fellow Americans is a soccer stadium and was Tiesto's largest performance in the UK at the time, and finally another performance for the Dance for Life Anti-AIDS Initiative in the Netherlands. By the end of 2008, Tiesto had accomplished things that no other DJ had done before. From selling out stadium shows, to touring the world multiple times, to changing dance music through his hit songs and record labels. He had solidified himself as a leading figure in electronic dance music, and even had some success breaking into the mainstream. And as dance music as a whole expanded into more mainstream popularity, he would continue to be a leader, pushing the scene and his career to new heights. Stay tuned for the next video, where we travel through the second half of Tiesto's career and see how he changed dance music forever. What's up, Bravers? If you've made it this far, I'd just like to say thank you for watching the video. This is a massive project, and I appreciate you taking your time to watch it, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it and want to show some support, please consider hitting the like button and leaving a comment down below to help boost this video on the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to hear more stories about EDM history, I try to have a new video out every month, so you can hit that subscribe button to be the first to receive updates or to know when a new video drops. Also, I'd like to take this time to thank a couple of websites. First, tiestofan.roog.nu and tiestocollector.com. These two fan websites have amazing archives of old interviews, set lists, and my research would not have been possible if it wasn't for them. Also, I'd like to thank the YouTube channel Make Tiësto Great Again for their extensive archive of enhanced footage of Tiësto performances. This video would have been a blurry mess if it wasn't for them. Finally, at the end of these videos, I like to give a couple suggestions for further content to people who want to learn more. So first, I'd like to recommend the 2003 documentary on Tiesto called Another Day in the Office. It's a super cool look at Tiesto's early career, just as he was on the cusp of becoming successful. Also, I'd like to recommend Kids on Media's interview with Dimitri DeWitt, who was Tiesto's manager during the early to mid-2000s. He's a super cool and humble dude, and he has a ton of cool stories. And lastly, if you're looking to listen to music as you do work or do chores around the house, I'd highly recommend listening to the Insert the Sunrise Mix series. Or if you're looking for something more energetic, consider the 3 Tiesto in Concert DVDs, as all of them are on YouTube for free. Well, I think I've talked for long enough, so stay tuned for the second part of this documentary, and as always, stay dancing, my friends.